Hi, happy election day. Well, as you can see, I literally just got back from my polling place, which is conveniently across the street, not much of a line, and I felt the way that I always do on election day in America when I actually get to go to the polling place and I see just like everyday people coming in to exercise their rights as Americans. I saw people who worked at the church. My polling place is at a church, and many houses of worship serve as polling places. For someone who is a pastor and has also spent the last 4 years researching Christian nationalism, I find it interesting that churches ultimately on election day, they're just supposed to serve like other houses of worship as a safe space for people to exercise their right as one person, one vote. I may have been researching this stuff for years, but I get one vote, you get one vote, everybody gets one vote. And it's one of the few kind of pure places where we see equality and equity supposedly at work. But I wanted to come and talk to you today. I usually write Tuesday blogs a week in advance, but I felt like on election day, I wanted to talk to you right in the moment, in the heat of it, because this is a heavy day. And there's a lot happening in this election that involves religion, involves Christianity, involves faith. And I just wanted to give a message. 2 years ago on election day, I was doing a lot of TV and radio appearances to talk about Christian nationalism from a pastor's perspective. I find it interesting today that although that term Christian nationalism is even more in the news, even more in the mainstream than it was 2 years ago, people are rarely asking my perspective as a pastor anymore, at least in the news media. Instead, you kind of see Christian nationalism instead just being used in the same way that other terms are by people who already have power. And instead of explaining what Christian nationalism is, it's become sort of just another wedge term. And you even have a lot of people on the right now saying we are Christian nationalists. How do you defend being a Christian nationalist? So the discourse has gotten really disheartening, which is why I also wanted to come directly to you and talk about today, what do you bring with you? Who is a Christian voter in America? You're going to hear a lot about the evangelical vote. You're going to hear a lot about the Christian vote. Well, I'm going to say to you right now that a Christian voter in the U.S. truly is somebody who's voting with concern for the poor, somebody who cares about immigrants, somebody who is not throwing around terms like the homeless or illegal aliens when it comes to human beings who are in search of safety and security and freedom. A Christian voter is someone who cares about the integrity of national leaders, someone who cares about honesty and truth and still actually believes that those things can exist in politics. A Christian voter is one who, as Jesus did, seeks justice for the oppressed, whether it's those who are wrongfully accused, wrongfully imprisoned, whether those who've been victims of racism, of sexism, of homophobia, those who've been on the margins of society, whether that's also rural people, poor people, people who've lost their jobs, people living with disabilities. A Christian voter is one who cares about those people. Ultimately, I think a Christian voter needs to be someone who is concerned about the value of every single life. This term pro-life has been co-opted by the anti-abortion movement. But to be a Christian voter who is actually concerned about the value of every single life means that when you're voting, you have in mind, again, prisoners, children, people who are poor, people who are addicted, people who don't fit in, people who have been put on the sidelines of this country. Now, there's a passage for this Sunday's Bible reading where Jesus warns against many who will come claiming to speak for him. There are many who are claiming to speak for American Christians today. They're telling us that if you give them your vote, that they're going to turn this into a Christian nation, that they're going to turn this into a place where to be Christian means you have special priority and privileges, especially if you are a white, middle-class Christian man. But the truth is that the movement of Jesus does not confer special privileges in this world. The movement of Jesus instead often leads, as it did for Jesus himself, the path of the cross, the path of persecution, the path of being bullied or left out or mistreated or oppressed. And so today I warn you against those who would speak for Jesus, but instead would use your following of Jesus to give themselves more money and more power. Many who speak for Jesus today are concerned first with their own wealth and power. They claim that America is a Christian nation, but America is not in the Bible, and Jesus is not American, and Jesus is not a white Christian. Jesus was not concerned with the establishment of a national religion, even though the religious leaders of his day wished he would have been. Instead, those religious leaders teamed up with the governmental leaders of Rome to crucify Jesus, because his ministry and witness was a threat to them. He was empowering all the wrong people and speaking too much truth. So I encourage you today, if you are a Christian voter, don't listen to those who say that nothing is true and nobody can be trusted and we can't know the truth, because you know the truth. You know that to be a Christian voter is to worship a God who said love could conquer all. A God who said that every single person had a right to freedom, that every single person's life mattered more than money, more than capitalism, more than the economy. That each and every single human life has and deserves dignity. You know, too, what you love about this country and what I love about this country. And it's so apparent today on Election Day. I was walking out of the polling place this morning with a young woman in front of me, and as she walked out the door, she just said, "Wow, this is a really important part of our democracy." Yeah. There is still a lot to love and embrace about America. And what you love about America is what we experience today: the power of each and every individual vote. I think you know what is threatening the value of each and every individual human life. It's not librarians, it's not books, it's not transgender people or immigrants or people experiencing homelessness. What's threatening America today is those whose thirst for power and money is causing them to kill or destroy anyone who stands in their way. They've weaponized our very real struggles for the middle class in America, and they have demonized those who have been most victimized. So today, on Election Day, I do pray that God will bless America as God has for so many years, even as God has called us to account for our sins, particularly as white Americans, our sins of slavery, our sins of disenfranchisement, our sins of hatred. God has also blessed America with brave leaders who paid the ultimate price for their witness and nonetheless fought for abolitionism, for women's rights, for workers' rights, and yes, for civil rights. I pray that God today will bless you as you take the time and chance in an era of nihilism and defeatism to go ahead and cast your vote anyway, whether you cast in the mail, whether you early voted, or whether you're going out there today with the many millions who are joining you. Pray that everyone who is able to legally vote is able to easily vote today. That those who win in these elections will lead with honesty and justice and humility, and those who lose will concede peacefully and graciously. As this day goes on too, I pray that you would be able to get rest, would be able to get renewal, and would be filled with confidence that you know what kind of voter your faith in Jesus is calling you to be. And it has nothing to do with power. It has nothing to do with money. It has nothing to do with violence. It has nothing to do with taking over a country. But instead, ultimately, it has to do with choosing love and peacefulness and truth and justice. Happy Election Day. Best wishes.